Welcome to another deep dive into the world of hidden symbols, forgotten secrets, and cryptic messages in art. Today, we turn our attention to one of the most iconic paintings in human history, The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. This masterpiece has been analysed endlessly, yet one peculiar element remains overlooked: the mysterious disembodied hand clutching a steak knife. What if this seemingly out-of-place detail holds a far darker and more disturbing message? What if it involves an ancient demonic figure known as Belial, a master of invisibility, deception, and control? We will explore how Da Vinci may have embedded a secret warning within this iconic painting, unveiling the hidden influence of Belial corrupting the very foundation of Christianity through an early form of biological warfare for political control. And will investigate the startling theory that the real figure behind the crucifixion story was not a meat-eating Jesus of Nazareth, but rather a Pythagorean vegan Judas the Galilean. Join us as we unravel this compelling mystery. In The Last Supper, Da Vinci masterfully depicts the emotional turmoil of Christ's final meal with his apostles. The moment is tense as Jesus declares that one of them will betray him. Yet among the vivid expressions and gestures, one anomaly stands out: a disembodied hand clutching a knife, seemingly floating between Peter and Judas. This hand, detached from any visible owner, appears to symbolize an unseen force at work. What if this hand represents the presence of an invisible intruder, one who has infiltrated this sacred gathering? According to demonology, Belial is a being capable of remaining unseen, exerting his influence through manipulation and deception. In ancient texts, Belial is described as one who casts a shadow over holy spaces, using his invisibility to corrupt those who believe they are untouched by darkness. The disembodied hand may not belong to a mortal apostle, but instead symbolizes Belial's invisible presence at this pivotal moment. Positioned between Peter, who Jesus called Satan in Matthew 16:23, and Judas, the supposed betrayer, the hand serves as a cryptic hint that the true betrayal lies deeper than one man's actions. It points to spiritual corruption at the very core of the church itself. The figure we know as Jesus may have been a carefully constructed persona, designed to obscure the legacy of a different radical figure, Judas the Galilean. Historical evidence suggests that the first temple cleanser, Judas the Galilean, who led a rebellion against Roman taxation and the corrupting influence of foreign rule in 4 CE, was crucified for his revolutionary activities only after his second temple cleansing less than 2 decades later. The New Testament's transformation of this fourth philosophy figure into a pacifist messiah named Jesus Christ may have been an elaborate cover-up orchestrated by the early church to neutralize the more politically threatening aspects of Judas's movement. Judas the Galilean's message was one of defiance against Roman oppression, urging his followers to refuse tribute to Caesar, money, taxes, and blood rituals. The fourth philosophy of Judas and James was uncompromising in its pursuit of freedom, advocating for the complete rejection of Roman rule. But to the monetized pontifical church that would rise to power under Roman auspices, such a Pythagorean figure was too dangerous. The solution? Transform him into a figure of meekness and submission, whose radical teachings were diluted and stripped of their revolutionary fire. Could Leonardo da Vinci, a man known for his intellectual prowess and skepticism of church doctrines, have embedded clues about this historical cover-up in his painting? The presence of Belial's hand in the scene may symbolize the church's betrayal of its true origins, replacing the teachings of Judas the Galilean with a more convenient, sanitized version. One of the most curious elements in The Last Supper is the absence of a sacrificial lamb, which would traditionally be the centerpiece of a Passover meal. Instead, Da Vinci presents a table adorned with loaves of bread, wine, fruit, yet with slices of meat only on a smaller offset platter on stage left, with the creepy disembodied hand clenching a steak knife over it. Why is the lamb carcass, the symbol of sacrifice, missing from the center platter of the Passover supper? Recent discoveries in the Dead Sea Scrolls and apocryphal texts provide clues. These texts describe the Ebionites, a sect of early Christians closely associated with James the Just, who adhered strictly to a vegan diet. They rejected animal sacrifices, adhering instead to teachings aligned with Pythagorean ideals of compassion and non-violence. If the historical Christ figure was indeed aligned with the Ebionites, then Da Vinci's omission of the lamb could be a subtle nod to the truth that the original followers of Judas the Galilean, mistakenly rebranded as Jesus, were against ritual slaughter. In the painting, we also see St. Andrew turning away, making the gesture of refusal as the disembodied hand extends a knife toward the slices of meat. The placement of this scene suggests that Andrew is rejecting what he perceives as a demonic corruption of their meal. Beside him, James the Just whispers in Andrew's ear, possibly indicating a shared understanding that this meat represents a perversion of their original teachings. If Christ and his original followers were indeed proponents of a vegan, non-violent lifestyle, why does Da Vinci depict meat in such a sacred scene? The answer may lie in understanding Belial's insidious influence. Ancient sources describe Belial as the embodiment of spiritual pollution, often leading people astray through the consumption of unclean foods and participation in blood rituals. The knife-wielding hand, processing the impermissible meat for consumption, appears to be more than just a literal image. It symbolizes the Church's betrayal by embracing practices that were once condemned by the early followers. This meat, presented in front of Peter and behind the back of Judas, could signify how Belial, operating through the Church, has inserted a ritual pollution narrative into what was originally a pure and compassionate Pythagorean doctrine. Leonardo da Vinci, a known Pythagorean vegan who adhered to the Pythagorean principles of non-violence, may have seen the Church's embrace of sacrificial meat-eating as a sign of spiritual decay and worthlessness. By including this unsettling detail, Da Vinci may have been covertly critiquing the Church's demonically inspired corruption, pointing to the darker forces at play behind its rituals. Da Vinci was a master of subtlety and subversion, embedding layers of meaning within his art. Living within the powerful grip of the Roman Church, he was aware that any overt criticism could be met with severe repercussions. Thus, he encoded his critiques through symbolism hidden in plain sight. The disembodied hand, the absence of the lamb, the uneaten meat on the table, and the reactions of the apostles are each clues pointing to a harsh reality, that the spiritual purity of Judas the Galilean and James the Just's Pythagorean fourth philosophy message had been compromised by a church corrupted from within. Da Vinci's painting serves as both a lament and a warning to future generations, illustrating the influence of Belial's deception in transforming a message of compassion into one of alchemical and monetary control. Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper is not just a masterpiece of Renaissance art, but an encoded critique of the seemingly demonic corruption within the Church. By using symbols like the disembodied steak knife clutching hand, the missing Passover lamb, and the presence of uneaten meat being rejected, Da Vinci may have been warning us of Belial's invisible influence of ritual pollution through his universal indoctrination. The painting invites us to question the narrative passed down to us and consider the possibility that the story of Christ has deeper, more troubling roots. So the next time you gaze upon the Last Supper, remember that what you see may not be the full story. Perhaps reading about the cameo of Belial in the New Testament apocryphal Gospel of Bartholomew would be helpful for some of you overachievers. Hidden within the brushstrokes may lie a message from one of history's greatest minds, a warning about the presence of an ancient demonic influence, an early form of spiritual and gastrointestinal biowarfare that has been lurking within the Church's ongoing fraudulent narrative for centuries.